Beware what lurks in the shadows, for you'll never know what Kickstarters you will find. We're here to tell you what we think are the best Kickstarters for the week of May 18th, 2020. S.H.E.O.L is a cooperative story campaign game which takes place in a post-apocalyptic sci-fi future. In this future, shadows have consumed the earth, and all that is left of humanity is inside the Citadel, the last city, where you will be playing as scouts who venture out into the darkness trying to find resources and maybe save humanity from these shadows. The board starts in shadow, and it'll actually be up to you to place lanterns and light paths for your adventurer to walk on. You can also use these lights to fight against these shadow enemies, whether they're normal shadows or some of their heralds or even the bosses, which you probably won't reach till near the end of the campaign. You'll be gathering resources, not only help yourself, but maybe build up the Citadel between chapters. You'll be making story progression through cards, which of course have branching paths depending on what you decide to do. When you fight these shadows, you will be using Lux points, which are sort of like your health. Should you hit 0, you'll enter a corrupted state, which you are stronger, but if you hit 0 again, you may run into some trouble. And since this is a heavy story narrative-based game, you can probably guess becoming too corrupted during game sessions will come home to roost at some point. As always, we're big fans of story games. I like this one because it takes place in a more sci-fi, and while it is post-apocalyptic, it still doesn't feel like Fallout post-apocalyptic. It's more closer to Destiny, if anything, so you still have high-tech gadgets and stuff. The branching story sounds cool, and I'm curious how the system would work. I love the fact that you rebuild the Citadel. I'm always a big fan of building up your base because it feels like you can make some decisions on like, should we make it more of a weapon-based system? That way we can get better weapons for ourselves or defenses. It's something I always try to push for.
Yeah, I think I have to say for me personally, I might be narrative campaign gamed out right now. I looked at this one and it looks neat. I think it looks cool, and yeah, some of that stuff sounds interesting in terms of the gameplay, but now, these days I look at these now and then I see minis and I see multiple sessions and chapters and I just get tired.
No, I completely understand where you're coming from, but I feel the theme stands out a little bit more to me because it's a bit more sci-fi, and I feel like most of the story games are very fantasy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oriented. And I do want to point out that the base level only comes with minis for the 4 playable characters you can play as the scouts. There is a add-on or an additional pledge where you just add it on a box with all the minis. So you can just get like a cheaper level should you just really want to focus on the story aspect.
That's nice. That's nice.
It is. And that brings it down to about $98. But I think while there are a lot of narrative story games out there, I think the theme of it helps it stand out a bit more. And the mechanics do sound interesting enough that I think it's worth taking a look at.
Gamelin Games is back with another Tiny Epic title, Tiny Epic Pirates. It's pirate themed, so each player will have their own crew, their own ship, and you'll be sailing around a map made up of cards with various islands. And at any of those islands, you can use one of your actions to try to plunder. You can find resources that you can use. You can hire new crew members. Of course, you can attack each other's ships, or you can bury treasure. And your goal is to bury 3 treasures before anyone else can. One of the things that makes the game stand out from a lot of others is the way that its action system works. Each player has a rondel, it's called, basically your steering wheel of the ship, and you have your actions laid out on that with little tokens, but not every player will have them laid out in the same order. So you have to move around this wheel clockwise to carry out your order, to carry out your actions. But on any given turn, each player could be doing something different. And it's up to you to plan around, well, I know that on the next turn, that player has their attack option up, but on my next turn, I have the hiring option up. What does that mean for me? Where do I want to be positioned in comparison to them? I think that's an interesting way of doing it, and each time that you play, it's randomly arranged, so you could have a very different experience. These Tiny Epic games, of course, there's a million of them by now. Everybody loves them, and I think it's fun that they can keep coming out with this series that's reliable, but every one is very different. The only thing they seem to really have in common for the most part is that, they're in a small box and similar maybe design philosophy behind each of them. But this is a pirate one that if you want to play, you can try this one out now.
I think now's the time that they need to take all their tiny games and make a system where it's no longer tiny. You just play them all up on the table, and you have to like jump between different worlds and something. This giant, like the Avengers tiny epic game.
So there's gonna be large epic, just epic.
Well, it's like it brings them all together. They don't make a new game. It's just taking all your tiny epics into one horrifically complicated board game.
Gameland Games, take that under consideration. In the meantime, you can buy just Tiny Epic Pirates for $25. They also have a print and play version and a deluxe edition, and there's an expansion that adds ghost pirates and evil curses and things, because you got to have some of that in there too.
This next Kickstarter is an updated version of the board game Maharajah. In this game, you are trying to impress the Maharajah, who's currently visiting the 7 biggest cities in India. To do so, you're going to be using an action wheel to take different actions to travel to these cities and try to build either shrines or statues to impress the Maharajah. Now, the challenge here is you will secretly be choosing 2 different actions each round, trying to either move your character to the different cities, build things, get money. But to move to the different cities, you actually have to build outposts along the way, and they may be filled with enemy outposts, meaning you're going to have to pay them in order to make it to the other city. At these cities, there are special placements for the shrines or statues, so you're also going to want to make sure you get that prime real estate before the Maharaj comes and visits. He will, of course, award whoever has done the most work in that city, and when he visits all 7 cities or someone has built 7 statues, the game comes to an end. The first edition of this game wasn't on my radar. This does look really cool. I like the secret action wheel because I think it's pretty cool where you can choose multiple actions, which means if one of them doesn't work out too well, you could be doing something else. It's also fun to try to predict what opponents are doing, and it can be really funny sometimes when someone is so sure what you're going to do and you don't, and you just see the confusion on their face. It's definitely one of the games that if you prefer more Euro games, I think you're going to like, and I'm still catches my interest. Jonathan, did you know about this the first time this came to Kickstarter?
No, I had not heard of the first edition either. Apparently, it was a Spiel des Jahres nominee back in the day, and from 2 very well-regarded designers as well. And it definitely has an old school retro look to it. Very much that old school kind of Euro game look and feel, which is fun sometimes. I think it's appropriate for the gameplay at least. And yeah, it looks like a simple, in some ways almost reminds me of not in a good way, sort of like the feel of Monopoly. Like you're saying, oh, you passed through my thing, you got to pay me this, but almost like an upgraded, more interesting take on that style of game with a lot more going on.
Well, maybe we'll put this on the list of, if you like Monopoly, something to try out that is a little bit better.
Yeah.
Now, if you are like us and you didn't know about it before, you can get the base game starting at around $50, but they do have, I think it's like $2 pledge, $1 or $2 to get the pledge manager, and you can get like the add-ons if you have the first game to get, the upgraded components or whatever else you need.
Here's a new one from the company Escape Plan called Stop the Train. This is a social deduction, hidden role style game in which all players are passengers on a train, but one person is the saboteur and they have planted a bomb on it. And it's up to the rest of the players to discover which player that is and stop the train before it's too late. However, everyone also has an additional secret goal. So certain players may want to get the train to a certain destination, or they may even want to be accused. They may want to be thrown off the train in place of the saboteur. All kinds of different things that they have going on, and they won't win unless they also manage to complete their own personal goal. So there's going to be some things throwing you off the trail of the true saboteur. There's also an actual board for this game. So the way the basic gameplay works is you're going to be drawing a card, making a decision based on what that card says, and a lot of times it will impact the speed of the train or the direction of the train. So you may make it go faster, you might stop it, slow it down, or move it in a different way on the tracks in such that the way that they are laid out. And depending on your goals, that could help you, or you could use what other people do to try and give you some more information on them. So of course, this is just another hidden role game, and there's definitely a lot of similarities between this and many other hidden role games I think we've seen. But I think definitely the unique goals makes it a little interesting, and the fact that, again, you have an actual board, so it's not all just theoretical, like in your minds. You are looking at a thing, and there is something physical you need to worry about, where that train is going and when it gets there. There's also a thing where at certain points you might be able to get I forget what they call it, some kind of a train ticket or something, but in-game it allows you to ignore your personal goal while still winning. So some players might be able to get around that, and maybe multiple players could win together. So you might be working with people or not with them. So yeah, it's like, again, it's another social deduction game. I know there's a lot of them, but I thought it sounded cool, and we're suckers for that train theme too. If you want to try Stopping the Train, you can for $42. This one is on Kickstarter right now.
Are you the kind of person who at parties likes to tell people the difference between rocks and minerals? Are you also a fan of role-playing? Well, maybe I have the Kickstarter for you. The Mineralogy Manual is a 400-page book which is designed to bring more of the earth essence to your game. It's got a whole bunch of pages where it's supposed to describe different earths you might find on the ground, minerals, rocks, gems, maybe how to fuse them into stones or bring them to a blacksmith, as well as, of course, creatures, NPCs, and maps that you may use if you want to maybe do a bit more of a dungeon crawl in a very literal sense. I'm always a fan of these that sort of add that extra layer of stuff that maybe isn't included in a regular DM book because it's already so big. I mean, I'm shocked that they got 400 pages of rocks, but maybe not. You know, if you study geology, you may be like, that's nothing. This should be twice as much.
Yeah, that's a little insane. I mean, it's a super deep dive. It sounds like this would be perfect for Hank from Breaking Bad. That's a Breaking Bad reference. Okay.
I'm also a big fan of crafting, and this is the kind of thing that really could help that. You know, if you have someone who is usually collecting monster parts like I am, you could be like, well, you should get some gems too, because, they don't rot.
Yeah, it's a plus.
So I really love these kinds of books that throw on and add those extra little small details that really help make the world feel a bit more lived in. So if you're looking to spice up the rocks and minerals in your campaign, there are many ways to do it, but to start you off, for $20, you can get a full PDF of the RPG, but for $50, you can get a nice hardcover book.
There are two other big Kickstarter projects this week that are conspicuously absent from our picks. One of them is Bullet from Level 99 Games. You can watch our full in-depth preview of that separately on our channel. That went up just the other day. We got to try it out and play around with it. It's a shoot 'em up, outer space, puzzle style game. And the other one is a new expansion for A War of Whispers, Dark Alliances. Adds some new cards and some upgraded components to that interesting war game, which we reviewed not too long ago. And we are going to be doing a video on that one, hopefully in the very near future. We're going to be able to get our hands on those cards themselves. So again, we can talk about it for you more in depth.
Yes, we'll have a link for both the preview of Bullet as well as our review of the base game of A War Whispers, if you want to hear about our crits and misses there. But for now, let us know what you're going to back. Are you going to add some rocks and minerals to your campaign, some pirating, or maybe you're not tired yet of campaign story games?
Yeah, let us know in those comments down below. Until next time, guys, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
This is Kickstarter Pickstarter.
Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and support us on Patreon. That would make us happy.
Maybe the next video is the one where Jonathan does a silly dance.